Hey, Dean, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm kind of tired.
Oh, I bet.
um,
What,
I'm
you said
I'm
you were at
shooting
a
this
convention?
documentary.
Ah,
Yeah, well, I'm shooting this documentary that I was in the East Coast for, and then I rolled straight into the Austin Film Festival. I'm a finalist um, in the screenwriting competition, and so I've not been able to like get my brain to figure out what time zone it's in.
yeah, I
But
got you.
yeah, but grateful to to be here, of course. But yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. So is it Portal that's the film that you're in the finalist for, or
Yeah.
is it something else?
No, it's a new script that I have that's separate from Portal.
Okay. What is that? So that way I can at least put that into the story that I'm doing for Portal.
Sure. Um, so, uh, well, let me back up a little bit. I um, the 30 years ago, several years ago, I'll say, um, I made my first film, which was a sci-fi thriller. It also happened to be the first found footage film ever. BuzzFeed just kind of outed me as the guy who made the first found footage film. And I was at Fantastic Fest where they screened it for the anniversary. And they're also going to do a theatrical release through Alamo Drafthouse next year. And so that's kind of the thing that I've been, yeah, after I finished the Portal, that was the thing that I rolled into next. And then I started doing this documentary that is also it's a UFO alien documentary, since that space has been kind of good to me. And then the new script is an elevated thriller about sex trafficking, and so that's my kind of latest project, and I'm hoping to maybe shoot that as my next feature. And then also I have a script that I think I can mention this. I, I don't know if I can. It's a Saw director who's directing my next film. We haven't. It hasn't been officially announced yet, so later on I will say that. I guess we could say mention that there's a Saw director who's interested without naming names.
Okay.
But yeah,
The sex trafficking one. Where will you be shooting that?
hopefully in L.A. It's kind of like the movie Duel, Spielberg's first film.
Mhm.
Duel meets Room, the Brie Larson film.
Okay.
And, it's about a woman who gets terrorized. She's a recently retired MP from the army. She recently left Afghanistan to go to her girlfriend's wedding, and she gets terrorized by a motorhome. Because that happens.
Gotcha. Uh, will there be a massive showdown at the end of it, like in Duel?
Pretty damn close. Yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah,
will the motorhome roar?
I'm going to sneak a roar in there. I don't care about, I'm going to do fair usage. I'm still going to do that. Absolutely. I'm not sure if I'm going to take it from Duel or if I'm going to take it from Jaws, which also had it in there, and do
Yeah.
like an underwater, muffled sound to it effect.
On the subject of Portal, how did all that come about?
Um, Chris Sergi, the producer, he and I have been trying to find something to work on. And then he connected with Horror Hound and online. And they had wanted to get into producing features and get branded in that space. And so they wanted to do a bunch of them. And so Chris reached out to me and said, hey, this is going to be the kind of proof of concept. Are you interested in directing the first one? Which I was. And so we spent a lot of time looking for a script that would work for the, that would match with the sensibilities of what we wanted to do. And that also, was going to be, not too big a budget, not the Papa Bear, not the baby bear, but the mama bear. And so came across his script. Chris did all the reading. I didn't read it, really any of them until he got down to one. He's like, I think this is it. No, I read one other one. And then I read it, and I was like, yeah, this, it's kind of its own genre now, the ghost hunting films. But I felt like, all right, I like this, and I did some work on the script. I put in a bunch of humor, added some backstory to a couple of characters, and but Peter Dukes gets all the credit, for creating the thing that got us all rocking on this. And so the script, and then I ended up also, I got hired to kind of do a bulk, meaning I co-wrote the script, directed it, edited it, and even did color correction on it, which is the first. I've done color correction. I tell myself that I do that. I usually edit all my films, but I just wanted to learn that because colors and tones affect the story emotionally, subconsciously. So it's a tool that I felt like I should have done, and I do it for other filmmakers. And I thought, well, I'll do it for myself, which was a bit of a challenge because there's too many options, and you want to treat it like it's a studio film when you don't have the time to do it. So you kind of just go through and, but it was much harder. It's like, I don't believe that filmmakers should ever edit their own trailer. They can collaborate on it, but ultimately it's like operating on yourself. And in fact, the trailer, I hope you have the right trailers. There was two of them. The second one that High Octane did was just wicked badass. It was, really, really good. I couldn't have done that. So it was great that we pulled in someone who had objectivity and didn't look at it like it needed to be a truncated version of the movie. It could be its own thing, and they hit the humor beats and everything, because there's a lot of genres going on here. We got supernatural, we got horror, a little bit of romance, and we've got comedy, and there's a retro vibe to it, an 80s, 90s retro vibe.
What do you think of those the studios that hire out an independent contractor to make the trailer, which pretty much is just spoils everything? Do you think that that's something that just needs to end, or is it a useful tactic to show almost everything in a trailer?
If I'm going to rub my genie's lantern and I'm going to pick something, I got 3 wishes. One of them is that trailers stop giving away everything. It's not good. To sell it it depends who the end users. If it's going directly to the audience, don't give it away, please. Look at the trailer for Close Encounters. I mean, it's epic. It is so good. Everything changed with Touchstone. Touchstone was the company, the Disney company, that started giving away everything, and then everyone was doing it because it's fear-based. Oh my God, what if they don't come? We got to show them everything. We got to get them in there. And you remember as a kid, you go, okay, so that's going to be the same. So now I'll be waiting for that to come up. I'll be preoccupied, distracted while I'm waiting for that one thing that happens in the clip. And then those are usually, undermining the setup. So and our trailer does a little bit of that because it was kind of a hybrid. It was meant for other sales, sales reps in Europe and stuff, but also meant for, consumer consumption. But if it has to be a trade-off, then I'll go with this one because it just really captured the spirit of the film.
Let's talk about casting. How was the casting process done? Did you have certain actors and actresses in mind before production, or was this just an open casting call for everyone except a specific name that we'll get to later?
Sure. You're talking about the dog, how the dog got cast. We'll hold that till later. Yeah. Oh shit! I've just given away a spoiler. Yes, there's a dog in it. Very briefly, it's how it came about was we had pulled together a list of actors that we thought we could get to based on our budget, and so we kind of went down that list. Some people were available, some weren't, and so we just kept kind of massaging the list until we got to people who had an opening, their schedule was available, and it worked out. In fact, I've spoke to the actors before on either Skype or on the phone because the two leads were not in Los Angeles. They were Ryan is in Oklahoma, and Ryan Merriman, and Jamie Tisdale is in Atlanta. So when I did my Skype interview, audition, whatever, she didn't really have to audition. We'd already, based on the work that she'd done, she was already pretty much hired. It was just talking to her before, make sure that she was comfortable and I was comfortable, and that was it. So anyway, I'm talking to her on the phone, and she says, "I've seen you before." And I say, "Oh, God, did we work together on something?" She says, "No." I go, "Okay, so where have you seen me?" And she says, "From behind." And I'm like, "What is, you can see me now? I don't get it." And she says, "We do yoga at the same class sometimes." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, you're always in the front to the left." I go, "Yeah, I'm there with my girlfriend, Allie." And she's like, "Yeah, I know Allie, and we did some training or something together. Might have been some retreats or something." So, we had never like kind of officially met, but, on and off for like 4 or 5 years when she was living here before she moved. So that was really funny. So we kind of bonded on yoga, and, in my book, yoga is worth the best acting credit of all time. So it was like, all right, you're in. And then Mike came in, who was terrific. And, before anyone got cast, actually, we had Ronaldo Zavachi. And he came in, and then he ended up doing some producing duties on it with his partner, Andrexa Vasquez, and then it just all gelled. I mean, it's the old cliche, but it's so damn true. Casting is 90% of it. If an audience doesn't care for them, they don't connect with them, it's not worth the digital zeros and ones that it was recorded in. And then also, you've got to have that chemistry between all of them, which was stellar. And these guys they're the ones who have to sell the story. All I'm doing is, as a director, my job is to make sure everyone's singing in the same key. It's a tonal thing, and to keep the pacing going. And the second thing is, and this is just how I work as a director, I pick all the shots and the lenses, and then you find a DP or cinematographer who I don't touch any of the lighting. I let them do all that, and I rarely operate camera. Ignacio Walker was our DP and just crushed it. He's the first DP I've ever worked with before who pulls his own focus. And at first I'm like, "Dude, we have someone here to do that." And he says, no, I can handle it. And I mentioned again, he said, no, it's, trust me, it'll be fine. And we go to shoot, and he's reaching over and he's riding the focus dead on. Very rarely would he buzz something dead on. And then I realized, oh shit, this guy used to do still does National Geographic. He did Our Planet, I believe, for Netflix. So he does wildlife stuff where he's got 600, millimeter lenses sometimes, tracking wild game as it's running to get their prey. So he has to be an expert at being able to dial in focus. And when you're that far away on a long lens, there's nothing more challenging. So his wildlife photography helped him to record humans, capture humans. So, sorry, I went off on a tangent here, but So with regards to the casting, that was how that played out, and super important. I won't do a movie unless I've got the casting right. It's just not worth it, because one bad performer and the whole thing falls apart like a house of cards.
Since your two leads have to have a very, I wouldn't say intimate, but they have to have a very compelling relationship to make that work. Did they spend a lot of time together getting to know each other and how to bounce dialogue off of each other, or was it just kind of on the fly as you were rolling that this happened?
Well, I'm very method as a director, so I made them divorce their separate from their spouses during this, and I had to have them sign this like weird prenup type thing. And but no, it was just this natural thing. Ryan's a goofball. He's a fun guy. He's a guy's guy. He's great. Jamie rolls, and she's a tomboy, and so she rolls with the best of them. So it was just this, you know, thing where, you know, I describe chemistry between people as you're walking down the street or down the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden someone's walking with you, and you just happen to look over, and you guys are walking at the same pace, and you're headed in the same direction. That's how these guys were. You know, my heart went out to them, you know, as I'm watching, you know, the performance unfold and everything, and you know, I'm the first audience that'll ever see this movie. So while I'm shooting, I'm looking at the monitors, or ideally I'm standing next to them, and I was feeling on set, and so I felt like, all right, well, this is, you know, good. But they're really, really good actors. Ryan just crushed it, and Jamie won an award for her performance. So that to me is, you know, out of any award, that's, you know, that's probably one of the top awards for me that I'm most proud of, is that, you know, an actor was able to express themselves in a way that was so convincing, you know, the audience bought it. Whether or not that means that I laid, you know, a safe environment for them to do that, or they just brought it on their own accord. Yeah.
What is your directing style like when you're directing actors? Do you give a lot of notes, or do you crack a whip, or how do you go about doing your thing?
I make them watch me act out every single part, every single role, and then I ridicule them and I shame them if they don't do it exactly. Sometimes I make them wear my clothes, or, you know, I very much, I do a shitload of homework. I storyboard, do shot lists. Depending on some films I've done where they're more kind of docu style, I don't do that. But on this one I did, because I'm working in a genre space. Even though I've done sci-fi thriller, I had never done horror, supernatural horror. And so this is my first entry into this. So, you know, I wanted to be a good student of it and learn, you know, the craft. And I keep a shot list, and I always say this to, you know, other filmmakers. Your favorite film, as a director, why is it your favorite film? Well, it's got good stories. No, that's ethereal. You can't, that doesn't mean anything. As a director, if you're not also the writer, what is it? You know, let's pick one scene that you really love. And that scene, you're going to visually break that down from editing to the way that it's shot. As an example, my favorite scene, I won't say it's, you know, artistic or whatever, which it is, but my favorite scene in the film is Indiana Jones, when he's told in Raiders of the Lost Ark that he can get, you know, they've been okay, the government's going to hire him to go get that Ark of the Covenant. And Brody comes over, is kind of go-between the government and him, his agent, if you will, and tells him they want you to go for it, Indy. And it's done in one entire shot, and it's like 3 minutes long, maybe 4, and it's all done by moving the camera and moving the actors, so that if you want a close-up, you can have the actor walk up to an actual close-up. So rather than changing lenses or bringing the camera in, you can actually have them come in. And there's this dance that goes on with it when he walks into the room, and then we pivot over when we come into the room. There's only one insert, which is when he throws the gun in the bag. So that, to me, I literally went through on this. I went through all my favorite films, David Fincher films. I'm a big fan of Fincher and Spielberg. So I went through and I literally wrote down all of these shots. I had all these rules that I had noticed from Fincher. I got a chance to hang out with David Fincher on the set of Panic Room. So I saw him in action. So I'm like, all right, when he does his close-ups, he does this and that. And so I went through and I literally broke it down and studied their close-ups, studied their transition shots, studied their establishing. You know, Spielberg, no one blocks a movie better than him. in all the cinema, he owns that space. No one comes close. And so the way that you position the actors is the dance. And so I did a lot of that work beforehand. So that's just the technical side. The reason why I don't let the DP pick the camera angles and stuff is because he should not be dictating the viewpoint of the movie and how the audience is going to take it in, because whether the camera's down low or up says something. Whether it moves fast or slow says something. It's not his job to, to take that responsibility on. That being said, there are sometimes directors who don't know shit about where to put a camera. And then that becomes a collaboration, and that's when a director of photography truly is a director. I've never really worked with a director of photography. I've worked with cameramen, I would say. But regardless of that, so I do all that homework so that when I get on the set, I don't have to think about that. Now I can just focus on the actors, because the actors, you can't move them around and force them unless you're doing action scenes. So I try to have my shit down. So when I walk on the set, we block it out. And so we have them run the scene at half speed. And then if they feel like, you know what, I want to move over here instead, it makes more sense, this or that, I dictate, I work off of what they need to do in order for them to feel coordinated. If they don't feel coordinated doing certain action beats, then they don't have confidence. So I do that. And then once that's done, I try to be very intuitive and look for those happy moments of magic. Like as an example, there's a scene in the film where they go into the kitchen. It's early on. They go into the kitchen, and I was just going to do it all in the master and then do some kind of panning shots. And I looked over, and there were ants that production didn't remove that were on the actual kitchen counter. And someone in the props were like, set dressing, they're like, oh shit, we'll remove this. And I go, no, you won't. We're going to shoot that. So I break up my shot and I get that shot, and it's, that's gold. That's a little magic thing that I didn't plan for. So, so that's kind of my job, is to pick how the audience is going to see it, and then just kind of let the actors do their thing. I don't try to give a lot of direction at all. Less is more. If I can say one word to just nudge it back, whether it's faster or slower or angrier, I do that. But when you hire really good actors, they know what to do. They own it, and they're able to direct. It's a cliche, because some actors like to say, oh, I direct myself. And I frowned upon that. No, you don't. But really good directors or actors do direct themselves. And so, and then also, as an editor, I know what I need and what I don't. And so as I'm shooting, I have a pretty good idea if I'm going to be holding on this master for the whole thing, or if I'm doing the shot all in camera. I know what I can get away with and what I can't. And the more prepared I am, the more coverage I can get, the more days that I can shoot. That makes sense. I can take more advantage of the time that I have, because it's always limited, especially in these low budget films. Mm-hmm. So if I know I don't have to spend, hours on this medium shot that I'm never going to go to, that helps me.
Since you're being a director in the truest form of the word, does that ever cause any strife or contention between you and the director of photography?
I've never had an issue with DPs, other than sometimes I've wanted to do certain shots, and I've had DPs say, oh, that can't be done. And then I've had to step in, because I've also done a lot of shooting. I've had to go, well, then I'll do that. But that's really rare. I'm not asking anyone to do anything I wouldn't do. I started out as a PA, and I worked for 5 years as a PA. My goal was to go from being a PA to a director, and I did that. And the reason why I wanted to do it for 5 years is I wanted to work in every single department. So except for makeup, I worked in wardrobe, I worked in camera, art department. I got a chance to work on the movie The Doors when I was really young, right out of college, The Doors. I worked on the last Dirty Harry film, Clint Eastwood. And I worked on Indiana Jones and Last Crusade for a couple of days up in Northern California, and a shitload of commercials. So all of that kind of prepped me, so I know what I'm asking if I ask a crew person to do this. So yeah, no, I can't think of any. The only times that I butt heads with one is if I have a I don't know how this is going to sound, but if I have someone who just comes in and they do their shtick and they're not curious. I want everyone on the set to be curious. I want them to feel like, boy, that'll be interesting. How do we do that, how do we make that room, that small room, look bigger? What do we do to do that? I love it when they come in and they're finding solutions. And so, if I'm doing a scene and I'm going, God, how do I get my camera? And I can't do that. And the DP says, well, if we break up your shot that you want to do into this, then I can move the lights and I can fly it in. That's curious. That's like, I'm going to problem solve. I'm going to, figure that out. But when someone just shows up and they're just hacking it, oh my God, that's the worst.
There's a very big name in your film, which all the PR emails and everything that I've gotten have pointed to. And I'd like to know if Heather Langenkamp was always a part of this, or it was a decision made later on during casting. How did she get involved in this film?
Holy shit, Heather Langenkamp's in this movie? Oh, man.
just for like 2 minutes. I mean, she just kind of walks in and then walks out.
Yeah, she just says, hey, I'm Heather. See you guys. And then it's just walking out. She signs a release, and that was it. It was great. Chris knew Heather, had worked with her beforehand, and in fact, she was the first person cast to be in it. And she tried to back out a few times because she runs with her husband AFX Studios, which is a practical effects company. If you've seen American Horror Story, all those people in costumes and stuff, those wild effects, they do that. They did Cabin in the Woods. They do Star Trek. Huge, great films, super talented. And so that's her and her husband's company, and she runs it. So that's what she does most of the time. Occasionally, rarely does she, do acting. And so she's like, you guys sure? Can't you get someone else? And we're like, no, Heather, it's you. There's no one, better as a scream queen, to come in. You would, we think you'd be great at this. And so that was just this kind of wonderful bonus. I mean, I remember seeing Nightmare on Elm Street when I was a young, film student, and it's just blowing my mind. This is so inventive and so fun. And I got to tell you, she can scream like no one. When they say scream queen, she's pretty damn close to being the queen bee on it. I remember one time she was screaming, and I said, I'm so sorry, I got to do this again. And my ears are like bleeding. And she goes, oh, it's okay. I love screaming. And I go, seriously? And she goes, yeah, it's such a great release. I'm like, oh God, okay. You are the master. So, and she was fun on set, but she had double duties because she also, AFX Studios also did the effects for the movie. So she would be overseeing that and then be like, okay, Heather, I need you here in front of the camera now. And it'd be like, okay, does she have the right jacket on? Does she have this or that? So that was a bit challenging for her and for us because there were some times where she was off prepping something and then we couldn't use her for the day that we needed. So there was a little bit of building around her availability. But for the most part, she was available. She's a sweetheart. She's great to work with. So yeah, that was a real nice surprise to have her involved in this.
When you were going through the film, doing the color correction and everything, what was your outlook on the final product? Did you get everything you wanted, or during that editing process were you just kind of like, maybe I should go back and do this or go back and do that?
I wanted more cowbells, definitely. More cowbells. To be honest, because I knew that we'd have to shoot this Fast and Furious. It was shot primarily with a single camera. I felt like, I mean, because I edit, I know what I need, and I felt like all that came through. There were a couple scenes that we cut out of the film that hopefully will be on the Blu-ray or DVD on special features that were good, but they were just cut for pacing. So I feel like ultimately it succeeded under the parameters of what we had to do in a short amount of time with not a lot of money. I feel like the cast and crew crushed it, and so I felt really good. That film that you see is I have Final Cut on my films, and so I feel like I'm responsible for that, and so I'm going to massage it, to the very end. And the color grading was, I don't know if I would do that on other films, because that was a real challenge, because I know all the tools. So it's like I can do power windows, I could do all these effects, and I had to I spent too much time, doing that on a couple scenes that were really challenging that we had, So I think ultimately, I would say that the film succeeded in the areas that I was hoping it would. I'm biased, of course, but yeah. I mean, of course, there's like little scenes where little shots and stuff where it's like, well, I wish I had more time that we could have, covered, this and maybe another angle, but it's not distracting. It's just me. It's my head. I'm always seeing little things constantly.
How much of this was shot on location? How much was shot on soundstage?
No soundstage. We shot the interiors of the house in Eagle Rock, which was actually in a home that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon wrote Good Will Hunting in, and then and that goes also for the basement or the cellar. There's no cellar or basements in Southern California, most of California. It just doesn't really happen that they exist, because we don't have weather conditions, not yet, though that is changing, that you'd need to go into a hurricane cellar, So that property in Eagle Rock also happened to have this detached garage that was kind of like a barn. And so I knew that I could take that and convert that into a cellar. And so it was just that we needed a staircase. And so we didn't have the budget for a staircase. And so I ended up taking my own fee and putting it towards hiring someone off of Craigslist to build us a staircase. and so it worked, and the magic of cinema, it played and felt like an actual cellar that they're going down in there. And so there was another thing that we did, which is I had the sound guy put a little bit of an echo on it, so he made it so the space sounded actually bigger than it was, so that helped. And then the exteriors were shot in Santa Clarita, at this one house, primarily at this one house. And so we shot all of those, and so I had to marry the two. So there's a shot when they pull up to the house, the Dolva house. And so all the shots obviously were there looking out. We see they're walking up, and we're seeing them from behind looking up at the house that's in Eagle Rock. And then we flip it, in the woods for the other. And it wasn't certain if it was going to work or not, but it was a cheat that no one has caught. So, and then we had a couple little locations here or there. One of them, Jamie's house, was actually mine and my girlfriend's apartment, and so that was fun to kind of immortalize there. And that's one of my favorite shots, actually, is where we go from her walking on the deck, going inside, and we go through the window, pass through the wall to going inside as she opens the door and closes it. That was pretty quick. I don't know if people register it, but it was a really fun thing to do.
right, Dean. My last question, which is arguably probably the most important one, is where and when you'll be able to see Portal.
Portal, you can now see it on Amazon. You can see it on iTunes, Google, and Microsoft. I forgot what that platform's called. And then hopefully we'll be getting a Blu-ray or DVD release. But right now, you can rush out and rent it and stream it. Oh, and by the way, my daughter's in it as well. Shout out, Ruby Alioto. She there's a little inside kind of Easter egg smartass thing that I did, which is she plays. There's like a scene at the very end, and her line is, "I hate found footage movies." And so that was a little slam on me. And so anyway. Yeah, no, we really wanted to bring her in, but she's, her number one priority is that business. And I think they're prepping something and she's slammed, but I'm glad that you appreciated her work. Yeah, I do want to give one shout out to, that I just remembered. A shout out to Corey Allen Jackson, who did the score. He, in my opinion, and we've had some nice reviews, people have called him out. He crushed it. He did this kind of retro John Carpenter thing without being too retro. Did a great job. And the thing that's the challenge is whenever you're, images show an audience how to feel, but music tells you. And so it's an awesome responsibility to be the emotional instrument in a film. And he did a great job. There's a scene towards the end where the climax happens and the music was so great, the themes and stuff that he created for the characters and the story itself, that I pulled out all of the effects and everything and just let it, I brought them way down and just let it play. And that was because the music was so strong that, I didn't want to get in its way.